Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the gathering place. Hello, once again for another week. I'm excited about you all joining us. Um, Welcome back to the gathering place. This is our final week in the Relationships Rehab Series. And we've got an awesome treat for you again. So as you come in, please tell us where you're logging in from. Tell us your city, your state, um, what town you're in. And if you can, give us your name because sometimes um, Facebook doesn't show us who your name is. So I'm going to wait for some of you to get on. But again, welcome to the gathering place, our relationship rehab. We're back. And this is our last and final series. So let us know where you're coming in from. We're excited. Let's see, who do we have? Tell us where you're coming in from. Let us know where you're logging in from. We're excited to see you again. Excited. We have an awesome group for you. Yes. Hey, Missy, how are you? Greetings from Huntsville, Alabama. Hello. Tyrena from Drexel Hill. Mika Henderson, hello. Thank you so much. Hey, Siobhan, nice to see you. Thanks, ladies. Hi, Takesha. Warner Robbins, awesome. Takesha from Sewell, thank you so much for joining us at the gathering place. I'm so happy that you've joined us again this week. Come on, let us know where you're logging in from. We're excited to have you back. Gloucester Township, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. We have an exciting wrap up tonight. And I'm happy because I get to bring my husband back on. I don't know how excited he is, but I'm excited that he's back. Hi, Karen from Willingboro. Thank you for joining us every week. And the doctor is in the house. So we are very excited that you all are joining us back. This day, we're going to be doing a lot of questions. Hi from Elkins Park, Pennsylvania. We're going to be doing a lot of questions today. So I hope that you all have some questions that you all want to pose to these men because they are ready for us today. They are absolutely ready. Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, Rhonda. Thank you from Lumberton, New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining us at the gathering place. Hi, Denise from Gloucester City, New Jersey. Thanks for joining us. Hey, how are you, Facebook user? Hey, sissy, back to you. I'm excited. Listen, I have some announcements for you all. Hello from Arizona. I'll give it a couple more minutes before I start making some announcements. And we're going to wait to see you all. I'll wait for everybody to join us. Andrea from Willingboro, thank you so much for joining us at the gathering place. We're glad to have you. Let's see here. We have a lot to cover tonight, a lot. And, I've been praying about this session and just really contemplating how some of the questions that I have. And I think there are some things that we're going to talk about tonight that I think is really going to play into the heart of our lives and where we are. And I'm really praying and hoping that God is going to give some of you some much needed answers. So I'm going to jump right in because we are going to get out of here. Hi, Elena from Denver. We're going to jump off here at 8:30. So we are getting ready to start. Although today is our last relationship rehab, we are not done being at the gathering place. I am so incredibly excited to announce our brand new series for our Bible study series, which will be starting in May. And drum roll, please. It is called The Winning Season. Yay, the winning season. Women who win. I want you to know I'm really, really excited. God has given me some inspirational messages, Bible study messages for you for this season. And it's been my prayer. It's been my prayer that we would see an acceleration to what it is that we're trying to do, that we would see God begin to cause us to excel and exceed in ways that we have never seen before. So we will be starting this season, the winning season virtual Bible study. We'll be starting that May the 10th. We're going to be doing a little bit of promotional on it, but I want you to invite your friends, your sisters, your cousins for this new season. And Lord willing, we're going to use this theme to carry us out until we get to Ignite Women's Empowerment Summit. And for those of you that may just be joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. Towards the end of this year, we will be celebrating at Ignite. And if you can attend Ignite in person, don't worry about it. We have something special planned for you as well. But I will be putting this information back up again. But we start on May the 10th. So Arvina, if you can post that in the chat, May the 10th is our brand new virtual Bible study. It is called The Winning Season. And let me tell you something. Everything attached to you is going to win. Okay? In the words of Jacqueline Carr, everything, this is your winning season. It may not feel like it is a win. It may not look like you're winning, but this is your winning season. So I'm excited about that. And then another announcement that we have, drum roll. We are going back to our dating boot camp part 2. So we had an amazing time with our dating boot camp part 1, and we had a really great webinar. We had fun. We talked, we chatted, and I asked the women if they would want a part 2. They said yes. And so we are going to be doing our dating boot camp part 2 on Thursday, May the 6th. So if you're interested, I want you to register for our dating boot camp part 2. Listen, you guys say you want to get married, remarried, you want to get to the next level in your relationship. You got to prepare for it. You have to get yourself in position for it. And I want to share with you the bumps, the bruises, the victories, the hills, the valleys that God has taken me through, including what I had to experience to start moving to relationship wellness. And that's really what we're going to be talking about in the dating boot camp, relationship wellness, right? Are you ready for the wife life? Well, it always begins with us. I know you think it begins with you finding a man. It does not. It begins with you. It begins with you literally getting yourself in position, ready for the next level. Okay. So for those of you who are just joining us, I want to say welcome, 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 welcome to our last series in our relationship rehab. It was only supposed to go for a month, but I thought it was so amazing. It was so good that I wanted it to just keep on going into April. And so our very next season and our very next series, it is going to be the winning season. And I'm believing God that when we are finished that we are able to see God show us some wins for us. Okay. So let's get started, because we got lots of things to talk about. If you saw the very first Let the Men Talk panel, you know it was fire. Okay. There was just a lot. We couldn't even get to it all. So I wanted a part 2, a redo, to bring these men back. And so because we have a lot to talk about, I'm jumping right in. I want to introduce to you, number 1, Dr. George James. He is the Chief Innovation Officer, Senior Staff Therapist for Counsel for Relationships. Hey, Dr. George. He is President and CEO of George Talks, which is a communication and consulting company. He has spoken and consulted with multiple businesses, media production companies, and places of faith. He is a recurring expert guest on radio, TV and online programs, including the Today Show. I promise you, just turn on the Today Show anytime, one week a month. Dr. George is on with Hoda and he is on with Jenna Bush. Literally, and every time I see him on TV, I'm like, there's George. He's been on CNBC, Nickelodeon, Good Day LA, Good Day Philadelphia, iHeartRadio, Radio One, and on and on and on. And let me tell you something, he lives what he talks. And then last but not least, is my boo. He didn't think he was going to have to come back again today. But guess what? He found his picture on the flyer again. But Harold Brown is the vice president of Physicians Network at Iredell Memorial System. He holds an MBA in Business and Health Administration. He is the former CEO of Sterling Health. He is a husband, a lover, a best friend. He is a father and an overall great guy. Really, I just told him he's just a really nice person. And anybody who's ever met my husband knows, you know, he's just a really, really good, deep down, nice person and has a lot of wisdom. So let's jump right in. Let the men talk, okay? Because us women, we talk all the time. And we don't let the men talk enough. So let's jump right in. We got questions. We got questions from the last conversation. I heard from some of the women who said, hey, I wish you would have talked a little bit more about marriage. So we're going to jump in a little bit of that, but just to keep everybody feeling like they are, you know, well-rounded, we're going to get into some dating as well. So the first question, but the first statement I want to make that I want you guys to talk through is, I am not divorced. I want to talk to, let me back up a little bit. There's a lot of people that I know who've gone through a divorce. And we had the Married Women's panel about a week or so ago. And one of our married panelists really did a great job talking about the struggle of getting back into the dating game and how, you know, we have to be healed of the hole in our soul before we can go back out there. But it's so difficult because you're used to being married, especially if you've been married for a long time. And, you know, we know that divorce is really difficult. It's hard, right? Because you're used to having that connection. And even if it was a bad connection, you know, you're wanting to fill that space. And so I want you to talk to the women who are saying this. I am not divorced yet. We've been separated for a long time. It's over in my mind. It's going. He's like, I'm moving on. I'm trying to get my groove back on. I'm trying to live my best life right now. And I met this guy and, you know, it feels right. I'm not divorced yet, but that's because there's a whole bunch of situations going on. He acting real crazy with the divorce decree and et cetera, et cetera. Shouldn't I have the right to move forward? Shouldn't I have the right to move forward? And so I kind of want to hear from you guys. What do you all think?
I'm going to throw this to the expert first.
Yeah, I knew he was going to do that. Harold, we just started.
Hey, I don't have the initials behind my name.
Oh, you got some initials. You know what people do. You know what they're trying to do. Oh, fine. It's an interesting question, and I was thinking about there's a whole bunch of different ways I could answer this question. So I'm going to hit the three things I think about. There's the practical way, right? Yes, you might need to get back out there. You need to figure it out, and most likely, if you've been married for a period of time, even if it's in between, there's usually some ways that you need to figure out how to get back into the game, whether that be online, whether it be about how to flirt again, whether it be about chemistry. Like there's all those other parts of what does that look like. You might not even know somebody is like trying to talk to you. You might not even recognize that somebody is interested in you.
Right.
You might think everybody is, and you're kind of you ready to give it up to everybody, right? So like that might not be where you need to be, because yes, there is still STDs, there is still shame, there's still a whole bunch of other stuff out there. Deeper, more therapeutic, what I would want people to think about is why? Like, why do you feel like you need to move on right now? Why haven't you gotten a divorce? What is keeping you from settling something that keeps you in this in-between limbo phase? Why aren't you figuring that part out and already focus on the next step when you haven't even dealt with that first step? And then the third part is the spiritual part is like, you're never going to feel okay unless something is really settled. And your heart and your spirit is going to be convicted one way or another. And so when you start to say that you're ready to line up fully with God, you're going to have to then kick this new boyfriend that you done already moved in with and have to start all over. And that's going to jack you all the way up.
Wow.
So I'd rather you deal with the why and deal with God before you start going forward and doing all that stuff.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So that's why I had you lead, George. Um, no, but this is good topic. Because this is a question on the mind of a lot of women and quite frankly men as well. We find ourselves in these positions. So I appreciate the opportunity to just kind of talk and share. We're not the experts on everything. As we let off, George is a little bit more studied on these topics than I am. But I think we're here just kind of share from our experiences. And so I think one of the things is, I am, not, like some others. And, I do believe that, there are situations where you do find yourself dealing with a divorce situation. But I think the question is, in between my final divorce, especially if I'm separated, kind of, is it okay, to kind of, play the field, get back out dating? And I think I'm going to, just kind of piggyback off a little bit of what George, led with, which is, but, what does dating look like now? And I think that's the question. And is it okay? So I think, one of the things we have to do is, it's all about, life is all about learning lessons and, what did you learn and how are you, taking your past experience and moving forward? Well, I think, I'm a leader, manager, I've been a director. And one of the things that I realized is that, probably the most important part of the work-life relationship is the interview. And I say that because, I kind of relate that to, dating, and so what is the interview process? What is that all about? Well, the interview process is about the company learning more about me to see if I'm a good fit. And it's also about me learning about the company to see if, I like the company.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of employee relationships are kind of made and broken, on the interview process. So I think that's where we need to go, which is, this interview process and, this dating, what is that all about? What am I learning? How am I moving forward? And, one of the most important things that I think about the dating process is, the transparency, me being transparent, with the other and, my partner being transparent with me and, how we move forward with that. So I think the answer to the question from my standpoint is, yes, I think you need to date, but I think this time you need to date with a little bit more intentionality from your experience.
Yeah. There's something that you both kind of have said that I want to piggyback on, which is this idea of taking time to evaluate where I'm coming from. We've all kind of shared and connected with people who we know have dated too soon after the relationship. And I always say, coming out of a divorce is like walking away sometimes from a train wreck, right? You don't come away from a train wreck and just go to work and say, okay, I was in a train wreck and I'm pretty good now. No, like you got to take a minute and go to the hospital. They just make you go, right? Even if you're like, I don't feel hurt. I feel fine. No, you still have to go and evaluate and look at, they do a full, complete scan of you. And we have to do the same thing emotionally. And I would say that with all relationships, right? Even if you're breaking up with a good girlfriend and all of a sudden you just want to start, hold on, what happened? what happened here? And here's the part that I would even add in. Ask yourself the question, what part did I play in this relationship breaking apart? So yes, you got this new guy, but have you asked yourself the right questions about moving forward? What part did I play? Where did that part come from? You know, what made this relationship break down the way it did? And if all your answers are based on what he did, you are not ready. You are not ready. Because even if he's cheated, right? Because that's always the number one. He's cheated, you know, and he spent all his money and he made us go bankrupt. What part did you play? And if you can't answer that question, because a marriage never disintegrates just because of one particular person. It's either something that you helped to participate in or something you did not speak up for. And even in that, even if you say, well, I just didn't own my voice, or I noticed issues, but I tried to give them a chance. That's a part that I want you to reflect on. What is it about you that you gave dysfunction chance after chance? Don't just sweep it away like I was just trying to be a good person. That's not a good answer because you are going to attract the same type of person because you haven't really evaluated, how did I get to this place? So, you know, I love both of you kind of sharing that. How soon is too soon to be back out in the dating field after getting a divorce? Yeah. So you've gotten a divorce now, right? Mm-hmm. How soon is too soon? Or is there's no rule to it?
I want to say that you need to spend some time, and you know, to the point that you just said, that it's important to check yourself, right? It's important to evaluate, because what I've seen over and over and over again is that we have these injuries and scars that started when we were younger, and it shaped our decision, right? So you were rejected when you were younger. You finally met somebody who didn't reject you, and you thought they were going to be the one. And then they cheated on you, which was a rejection. And now you're divorced.
Right.
And if you're not dealing with that deeper issue, you will find somebody. And as you said, you will then participate in your own rejection. You will find a way to create a situation, even though you don't think it's you, that will then end up rejecting you. So if you're not taking the time to deal with that, it doesn't matter if it's a week or 5 years, it will show up again. Now, so if you do take that time and put that investment in there, yeah, I think like I would rather people wait at least a year, right? But most people, they're not going to wait that long.
Right.
They're in it like already like a few weeks in, but at least do the work or try to start the work so that you can be prepared.
That's good. That's
good.
And
I think, it's all about being honest and transparent. Sometimes that means being honest and transparent with yourself. So those who have been through a divorce and find themselves on the opposite side of that divorce, one of the things that, if you really take an honest look back at the relationship that you're walking out of, one of the things that you realize, and, some of you have heard it before, is that, marriage is a mirror which reflects, all of the good and all of the bad, and challenges, about yourself. And so the question is, how honest and how transparent are you going to be with yourself in embracing some of those flaws and some of those challenges? Because I think starting a relationship, it's moving into a new cycle, and so the question is, am I going to create the same cycle that I'm just leaving? And because if I find myself creating the same cycle and playing the same role, then I'm likely going to find myself in the same situation.
That's good.
Maybe not a divorce this time, but the same exact challenges, that I found in the marriage that I'm leaving, that caused some difficulties, I'm going to walk into. And so I think this is one of the things that we're trying to do is to, start off on a different foot, try something different. And I think it all boils down to, honesty, being honest with yourself and doing that work. And to George's point, it's difficult to do that work in 2 months. And sometimes it's difficult to do that work on yourself if you've got the distraction of someone else that you're also focused on.
That is really good. And that is it right there. I think when other people come into our life, it is a distraction. And what I hear women saying is, oh, he's just a friend. All right, girls, so let me talk to you for a second. Because I'm a girl and I know, right? That doesn't work for us. We can say all day long, I'm not emotionally connected, but we were built for this. We were groomed for relationship. And no matter how many times you tell yourself that you're not attached or we're just friends, psychologically, you're not. Because if I were to say to you, well, then don't call him anymore. Tell him, hey, we need a break. I'm good. And if you start to feel a little anxious and anxiety, well, why do I have to do that? What we've learned is there's an emotional attachment now. And so I think it's important that we don't bring distractions into our life. All right, jumping forward, I've spoken to a lot of single women, and this thing becomes this. What I'm getting ready to ask you all is, and it's a heartburn. Okay, it was a heartburn for me. I had issues with it. It's the S word.
Uh-oh.
Submission.
Oh, I was thinking about another S word, but
we can talk about that later. The S word, submission. So you guys both know that on some level, submission has been taken out of context, but it's biblical, right? And so I always had an issue with the idea of submission because I never really saw it done in a way that I thought was healthy. I really didn't know when a woman was acting in submission and when she wasn't. And so help us as women. First of all, give us your understanding of what submission is and, and what it isn't. And yeah, just help us understand that.
So you, Harold, my mic.
Yep. I'll go ahead and lead this one. Give me the hard ones.
Yeah.
Submission is one of those things, and even in the vows, right? Now, everyone's not comfortable with the traditional vows, because it includes the word submission, and I just think that because we've got this understanding of an idea of what submission is, from the biblical times and from those times, when men were in authority, and the idea or concept of what that meant for a woman, and her quote unquote place. But I think we've progressed, right? We've progressed, and so I'll give you my take on what submission is, and then I guess we can go from there. I think it starts with it's all about authority. And, so what is authority? Authority is the power to make decisions, so making decisions. And so what submission to me kind of looks like is, someone saying that, I'm allowing you to make decisions in certain areas, of my life. And so.
Hold
on. Her spotty senses are going on.
Go ahead.
This is already making me nervous.
So submission is, me giving you the power or authority to make a decision that impacts and affects my life. And so the reason why it's uncomfortable is because when I'm single, I make my own decisions, right? I live and I die by my decisions. And guess what? If I make a decision that is not the best decision, then who do I have to blame? Myself. But, we don't blame ourselves. We just say, this is how it is.
Right.
But entering a relationship now is me saying, over this area of my life, I'm giving you power or authority to make a decision. And so on some level, it's relinquishing, some power, which is uncomfortable, because when I'm putting myself in your hands, and my feet are off the ground, I no longer can control the direction. I'm just a little bit more uncomfortable because I'm not secure. So, what does that look like in a marriage? Well, we can give, authority or power, over certain financial decisions, um, budgeting decisions, decisions when it comes to our children. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why, it's uncomfortable, but, I hope that I'm at least giving a different spin, to, the idea of submission, outside of the traditional, I need to, bow down, kowtow, and, just follow, blindly everything that you're saying. And so in my mind, understanding that authority is power and power is giving you the ability to make decisions, then what that looks like in a healthy relationship for me is, there is some sharing of decisions. And so there's some sharing of, some authority, some sharing of power. And so I think that that makes for a balanced relationship. And I think that, that power, breaks along the lines of, our God-given abilities, gifts, and everything else. And so, I'm going to stop there because, we can go into the fact that, some of this is brought up through our dating process and, any coaching that we may have received, in that process and learning and really understanding, our strengths and our weaknesses before going into marriage. So let me just stop there and let George, jump in.
Yeah, Harold, I'm glad that you took that and you shared and you put it that way because I don't have to answer that part of it. So thank you. I think men and women are horrible with submission, right? So I think when we hear this, we often think about about the guy is saying that you need to submit to me, and the woman saying I ain't gonna submit to you. As even in the text chat, what if he's leading me down a black hole, right? Because the start is he's leading me down the wrong direction. But I've seen women, right, and I've also seen people in the chat saying submitting one to another, right, which is part of it, right? But I've seen women who have said and done things to their partner, to their husband, in a way that's like, do you think that's submission? Like you're really horribly speaking to him and talking to him in a way that is just making him feel like an infant, making him feel like he's nothing, like in public, or just having different ways that you're communicating. So I've seen both men and women be horrible about this. My view about this is that submission is equal, right? Equal in terms of we go back and forth, that there is dual responsibility, as Harold was saying, in terms of shared responsibility. But what happens is that I can't do that unless I trust you, which is why I really like the part that's as Christ submitted to the church, there's a level of trust and vulnerability and openness that I can give my all to you. I can fully trust you. But too many of these relationships are broken, are scarred, are damaged, and people use certain words to have power that they didn't earn, power that they didn't even groom or develop in the relationship. And so when we get to submission, I think people now start to lean on that. I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you what to do. Or on the other side, you can't tell me what to do and I'm going to embarrass you. And it has nothing to do about connection, about trust, about vulnerability, about even Christ. As much as people battle against it, they're not even really thinking about their full relationship with God in the midst of that situation. And so at the end of the day, right, yeah, there might be some tough calls and some tough decisions, but I still believe that it is not just a one and done conversation. We disagree. All right, I'm the man. I'm going to make the decision. No, we have round 2 and 3 and 4 of this conversation till we get to a better place. And if we're still stuck, all right, then maybe we need to figure out how we're going to make this final decision. But it's not just because we're at this crossroad, all of a sudden I'm going to make the decision when we didn't even give it a try. So I think submission is a process. It is a going over and over and trust and building of that connection versus just trying to use this word to have power that you didn't even earn. And I'm not just saying for the man, I'm saying on both sides, because I've seen, like I said, both people try to make the other person submit almost like one of those wrestling moves. Like, I want you to tap out. I want to make it so hard and difficult for you to like to deal with the relationship. So I want you to give in.
Yeah. You know, let me just jump in and because you want also, you know, just the inside of, you know, a man's mind. And so this isn't for every man, because every man comes into a relationship with, you know, different perspectives. But, you know, for me and many other men that I know, one of the questions is, you know, why does a man enter a relationship wanting to, you know, having a different understanding of what submission is and trying to, you know, usurp that role, you know, on that throne? Because most of us, well, not most of me and a number of other men that I know, this is what we've been taught. You know, this is what we've been groomed. You know, this is what we have been told, you know, our role is. You know, our role is to, you know, be the leaders in a household. And so that means that we make decisions, you know, and those decisions are for the betterment of not only us, but our family. One of the challenges that I have, though, and one of the things that I've learned in my relationship is, you know, if a man is honest with himself, nobody wants to be on the pedestal by himself, making all the decisions and to be blamed for all of the decisions, especially the ones that don't go too well.
That's right there.
So, so one of the things that, you know, we're looking for, you know, in a spouse, in the relationship, is a woman that we're able to, who we're able to embrace as that helpmeet, as Eve was in the garden. And so what that means is, you know, yes, men are looked upon to bring something to the table, you know, but, you know, we also look for women, you know, to bring something to the table as well. And, you know, what I was saying earlier and what George, you know, mentioned also is that in order for us to feel comfortable and competent that we can, you know, share and embrace, then, you know, we've got to, then women also have to, you know, be bold enough to bring something to the table as well.
I want to say, you know, Harold probably won't say this, but we had issues with submission earlier on. And I'll just talk about my piece. So I always jokingly say this: I come from a long line of Amazon. Okay. All the women in my family are strong. They're loud. We are pretty controlling. We kind of we're very opinionated. None of them will probably want to acknowledge that, but it's true. And I've picked up on all of that. And so I remember when we were dating, this topic was just like so very scary. And the thing about it was that he had never done anything to make me distrust him. I just walked in with trust issues from the beginning because I had this fear of somebody telling me what to do, when to do it, how to do it, you know. And now some of that was maybe from past relationships, right? But this was really like, I'm coming into this marriage and I want to see things. I want things to go the way that I want them to go. I had this vision, this image of my mind of how I want the kitchen to be clean, how I feel the bills should be done, because this is how I've always done it, you know. And so we had issues with that because, you know, in my mind, submission was this idea of being this subservient person, right? And I think I intentionally, so Harold, I'm making a confession. I intentionally did things just to prove that he can't be in charge of me. And so there would be times when he would say, you know, I'm hungry. And I was like, me too. Who cooking? You think I'm supposed to cook? You know, so, you know, he was like, I don't have any clean shirt. I'm like, yeah, my clothes are dirty too. Who's washing clothes? So, you know, and plus I grew up in this family where it was all boys. And so the way my parents raised us, everybody washed dishes, everybody cleaned. So I really wrestled and struggled with submission. But when I started to really understand, number one, so ladies, everybody write this down. The Bible says that as husband and wife, we are to submit one to another. submit one to another. I saw a lot of people post that, right? And so that's number one. Number two, submission is really all about, as Harold and George is saying, this idea that I'm submitting to an authority that I respect, that I honor, and that has a gift and a talent that can take us far past where we are. And so I'll give you an example. Before me and Harold got married, I was doing my bills, he was doing his. And so we really struggled when we first got married about whose way was better. Well, clearly, if you looked at my report cards and you looked at my math grades, you would know I really shouldn't be doing the bills, guys. You would know that. You would be like, ma'am, I'm gonna need you to not, I'm gonna need you to hand it off and not deal with anything that has to do with dollars and cents. And so part of my submission was giving up authority to a person who is gifted to lead us in this area. And see, that's all a part of marriage too. It's being humble enough, having the humility to know why this person is coming to make me complete, because he has gifts and talents and insight that you don't have. You think you have it, but he has an insight that probably can lead us in a different, better way. But our problem as women is many of us have been raised, sometimes, not all of us, by dominant women or women that we may look at as being weak. And so if you were raised by a dominant woman, in our minds, we watched how our mothers have talked to our fathers, or our aunties have talked to people, and we adopt this language and this terminology and this feeling of, we got to be on top, we got to be in control, because if not, a man's going to run down the street and destroy our life, even though we've married him and said till death do us part. And so I've learned that submission is really about trusting the authority over my life. Now, somebody just posted a question, and I have to, even though a lot of our questions I would like to wait till later, we have to ask this question, right? So what if I am married to somebody and he is crazy? He's spending money everywhere. Every time I turn around, now this wasn't the question she asked, but this is my question. Every time I turn around, the lights are off. I can't find where his check is. Okay. I know he goes to work every day, but I'm not seeing any of the money. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. How do you expect me to submit? Now, he's great at money, but he's not a great leader in almost anything. And I'm here now. I thought, I got married and I didn't understand what I was really walking into. What do we do as women now? Because I'm gonna need that check, sir.
I was thinking, Harold, I'm gonna let you really answer that. But what I was thinking about is that from the guy perspective, we're doing a lot of talk, even more so in multiple spaces right now around race and racism and injustice.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't often talk about is how, growing up as a guy, you're given certain privileges. You're given a way to think about the world and to operate that works for our benefit, right? And one of those things is that when you hear the word submission and you hear someone has to kind of, as some places teach it, do what you say, it takes you off the hook from doing the hard work. It takes you off the hook from being able to evaluate, well, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I need to go get some support. Maybe I need to ask you for your help. Maybe I need to give you this to you in this area that I'm deficient. And so what happens, we not only do we get off the hook, but then we start to feel shame if we can't do it. We start to now feel like it's part of our pride that we have to do this thing. And we end up making it worse and digging the hole deeper and deeper. And so, yeah, there are some situations where somebody is gambling or somebody is doing some other things with the money. Somebody is doing reckless things. And all of the stuff of I'm not a real man if I have to say I can't handle the money. I'm not a real man if I have to admit that I'm struggling. And this is what I've been taught to do all my life. So I just want to give you an example of what some men are struggling with, of this is what I saw my father, grandfather, people in the church do. and I don't know how to do differently, and I'm stuck.
Wow.
So he needs help and support, and probably another man to talk to so that he could hear it and make the adjustment.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
So George answered the question, but didn't answer the question.
Right.
He let up for you to answer the rest.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think it's because, I mean, it's a hard question to answer. And, quite honestly, there probably is no, easy answer. But I was going to say that, as we are trying to be supermen, which is do everything. And George, kind of touched on it a little bit. Part of Superman is, not exposing your vulnerabilities and not exposing where you're weak. And so when it comes to a man who, I think, Nikki, you said, who's not managing the money well and who's just kind of spending. And, I think part of it is, I think we need to look at that as, a cry for help. Nobody wants to, just like someone who's struggling with alcohol, it's a disease, it's a pattern, it's something they find themselves doing, but they don't want to, they don't want this image of themselves, right? They don't want that. They need some help. And I see that in the same way in marriage with someone who's, just kind of recklessly, doing whatever, damaging the relationship, to include the finances. I think it's a cry for help. And I think that, as a spouse, I mean, that's the first level of support. And so I think the first thing is to, approach that man and, share, your thoughts, share your concerns, and then offer your help and your assistance, in a way that you are not, belittling or, badgering or treating him like a, brother or a little kid. I think, there's a way that we can approach, to offer support. If that doesn't help, George even said that, sometimes, in the multitude of counsel, there's wisdom. And so, there, hopefully, there is someone who's able to, touch this guy into speaking to his life, whether it is a father, close friend, or, someone that the two of you can trust, because you want to be careful about going outside the relationships and the boundary. You don't want to, betray, that those boundaries. But, if there is someone that can, confidently, speak into, his life, then I think that's, where you go as well. And of course, we pray, you pray over and pray for your spouse. So, as much as we want to try to be Superman, there are times when we need Superwoman, in there as well. And so I think this is one of those times when, you try and step up and support also.
And I would add and say that at a certain point, girls, if you're at a place and you're carrying a lot of burdens because you're married to someone who is reckless, you need to have a come to Jesus conversation. And that conversation sounds something like, I want to be a different woman. I don't like the wife that I am right now. And it's difficult to be submissive. It's difficult to kind of give these things over to you because here's my experience. And I want things to be different. And I don't know that I could keep moving forward if things stay this way. So here's my suggestion. I want us to go to counseling. Unfortunately, I'm a little biased. I'm being a former therapist. I'm a big believer in counseling, like going for real. If you have insurance, find a counselor. It doesn't have to be necessary. If you don't want to go to your church, that's not a problem. But somebody has to start to help and guide this relationship and this marriage. But you have to get out of the, and you got to get out of the, I'm going to treat them like a baby mode. I didn't marry a baby. I married a man, and I don't want to talk to you like you're a baby, and I don't want to talk to you like you're juvenile, and I don't want to hide money like you're an ex-convict, and I don't want to, hide my decisions. What are we doing right now? Stop and ask yourself about the dysfunctional responses that you're making because of the person that you're married to, and turn around and say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to do it anymore. And here is my suggestion in moving forward. And if he doesn't go, you go. You go, because somebody is going to help you understand the part that you're playing in this. Not in making him be who he is, right? But what you might be adding to it, and how you got to this place to begin with. Because what you might find out are some of the hidden broken pieces of his life that you may need to pray for. You might find out how you're agitating it, or you just really might find out, hey, I'm doing everything I know to be Superwoman, but I'm tired, right? I'm tired. I don't want to carry this burden anymore. I feel like I'm in this marriage by myself, and I'm not willing to move forward this way. You have a right to have a come to Jesus. Everybody type that, a come to Jesus conversation. You got to have one. Every marriage needs a come to Jesus conversation, at least every 2 to 3 years. And it's assessing the landscape of our soul, the landscape of who we are as a couple, what's working and what's not working. And again, if he will not go with you, you go. And let that counselor help you walk through the process of what steps you need to have next. Okay, so we got to jump. This is this next thing that I really, really want us to talk about. So many women who are ready to get married or are married were single parents. And, Dr. George, you and me have had our share of counseling premarital couples who were dating and trying to think through blending of the relationship. And I'm going to tell you something, from what I've seen, what I've heard, I want to tell you, it is not easy. Just when you think your children are okay with you dating, it feels like the moment you get married, things shift. And so I'm going to throw it to you first, George, and then Harold, because you both have experience in step families, step parents. George, you from a counselor, Harold, you from a lived experience. But, what is a realistic expectation when you start dating and you have children and you get married? And let me just back up. I've read studies where that child can go from 7 to 10 years and not even consider calling that parent mom or dad. Like, that is a normal, George, I'm sure you've seen that statistic. That is a normal statistic where and some of them may never call them mom or dad. But what we've seen is that, let's just talk about women and men. Sometimes women want this ready-made dad to come in, to discipline, to put their foot down, and she gives them permission to spank the child, to discipline the child. And later on, we learn how much pain it is. And sometimes even during those times, they bring the children to us. And it's because, there's this difficulty in transitioning with step families. So talk a little bit about, I'm going to start with you, George. Talk a little bit about what should be the transition when you're dating and you have children. What should be some of those transition points that women should really begin to cultivate, even with marriage?
Yeah, we started off by talking about dating, and dating period is not easy. It brings its own set of challenges. And then as you have more layers, right, whether it be divorce or financial stuff or children, it just adds layers to it. So if you're now like trying to date, you have children, one of the things is you got to figure out when you want to let your partner know that you have children. Because some people say, like, I don't want to let them know until I know it's serious.
Okay.
I don't want to let them know until, like, I really recognize that I have feelings for the person, because you know that once you let them know, that's going to shift it. But then the other part is I might not want to tell my children until it's serious, right? So you got to figure out what that line is for you. Well, but to the heart of your question, what I've seen, and one of my mentors has shared this with me, is that it's all about relationship. Power and authority, as we were sharing earlier, comes from relationship.
Yes.
It's not just you walk in and you have power or authority. You have to earn it through relationship.
That's good.
And he would say, like, he would like, oh, if I'm going to play with my grandkids, what I go do when I go to one of my son or daughter's home is that he's going to get on the floor and he's going to ask them what they're playing, and he's going to join in with them, right? He's not going to tell them what to do because they were already playing. He's going to get on their level and figure out what that is. And so that's age appropriate. What is the way to get on the level of the child or children that you are now trying to connect with? And if she is trying to rush you, or if you are trying to rush him, you can't fabricate relationship. It takes time, it takes experiences, it takes inside jokes. It's like you have to come up with a name that works for them before they can ask and call you dad or call you whatever. And so that is how people get there, because when they try to rush it, it does cause more problems with the child, more problems with the relationship. And then when the relationship is over, the kids have to now repair and recover from that. And that's just too much. So it's a lot that I think that goes into it, and it takes thought, but the heart of it is building solid relationship. And the challenge is that you got to do that on two levels, as a couple and then with the children.
That's good.
Yeah, and so I'll come from my own experience, and so my mother may be watching, so my timeline may be off, but this is how I remembered it. So first of all, let me just say that I believe I had a healthy transition, and my mother and father had a lot to do with that transition. So my story is that when I was very young, my mother was divorced. And I want to say I was about 6 or 7. So because I can remember some things, but I don't have complete memory of everything. I do remember, I don't remember my biological father being in the house, but I do remember some interaction with him. He ran track. So I remember, doing that. I do remember the period when my mother was dating my stepfather, who I do call my father and my dad. I remember that because I can remember that he loved cheese, and every time he came to the door, I brought him a slice of cheese, and he liked all kind of cheeses. And so that was, the big first connection point. But Nikki, to get at what you're talking about is, basically how is a stepfather or step parent, embraced in a healthy way into a new relationship. I think first starts out with, me as a child, my authority is my mom. She was the one that I respect, and she's the one that I know. She's the one that I've got a connection with. And so what makes this foreign man in my house or coming to my house, what makes him different than Joe Schmo, walking down the street?
Right.
The difference is my mother's validation. So I think that's the first thing, is that my mother is validating, this man, as the new man in the house. And one of the things that I appreciate about my father is that, he didn't come in, trying to assume, an authority role and trying to, be that father, that I never had. Like I said, what I remember about him is, he was the cheese man. I always brought him cheese. So he was non-threatening. So that's how he entered our house. And I think that how I gained respect and security is, George, hit the nail on the head. It's, through that relationship. It was through those, times when, again, I brought him cheese, those times when we watched TV together, those times when we went out, those times when he took me out for ice cream. And then just all throughout the life, it's those experiences that for me, developed a sense of security. And so I think when you match the security because of the experience when you match that up with my mother's validation, now that's what gave room to me accepting him as an authority figure in my life. And so I think it's one just about, the man, from the husband's perspective, it's about one playing a role, so, he started playing that role and he modeled some things, and so you put those together and that's, role model. He modeled what a father should be, and he played that role and acted out, that in our household. And eventually I embraced him, as my role model, and embraced him as my dad, as my father. I don't know when I started calling him dad or father, but, I will say that, he is, the father and the dad that I always, look up to, respect. Later on, I had an opportunity to meet my biological father. Don't want to take anything from him, but the man that I am is because of my stepfather and how he stepped in and assumed that role.
And I remember my father in love, who is an amazing man, amazing provider. And so I want to jump in. So this is all great information. I want to jump in too, because what I've seen in counseling too, and I want ladies, I want you all to hear this. And this is something George is saying and Harold is saying, and we've heard this saying before, but it says something like, discipline without relationship creates, what is that, George? Discipline without relationship creates disaster. That there can be no discipline without relationship.
Yeah.
And so, ladies, you may, and I'm going to even say, if you're marrying someone or dating someone who has children and you don't like how his children act, right? The reality is you don't have the right. He does not have the right to discipline your children because he has not, or you have not built relationship. See, whenever you show up in that child's life, what they have to do is figure out, can they trust you or not to discipline them, or I won't say hurt them, but discipline does hurt, right? Whether it's yelling at them or putting them on punishment. What the parent has an advantage of is that, let's just say you come into someone's life and they're 10 years old. They've had 10 years of that parent nurturing them, connecting with them, loving them, being there for them through that child's faults. You are just here, right? So I don't know if you are disciplining me from a place of love or a place of hate. I don't know you like that. I don't know your heart. And so, ladies, if you allow a man, and this has always been my advice, that you have to give that man time, and you need to tell that gentleman that you can't discipline my children right now. Don't say ever, because there's a flip side to this. I have counseled women who were like, I don't let no man come in my life and talk to my kids, period. They're not allowed to. Well, wait a minute. So you're not allowing him to be a part of the family, right? There's a transitional phase. There's transitions, right? I've counseled people where the wife, the mother, and the kids were like this. And the boyfriend was standing on the outside trying to look in. They had their own language. They had their own fun. They kind of would make jokes about him. He was great for taking them different places, and he grew very bitter. And I remember saying to this one lady, well, I would feel that way too. It looks like you just want a glorified babysitter. And so we have to, it is a strategy. Everybody type, it's got to be a strategy to blending a family together. I'm telling you, ladies, if you're dating someone and he is just coming in, that has to be so strategic, right? Because if it is not, you're going to risk that child really acting out, having issues later on, because he came in and took too much ownership too fast, because you trust him. See, you know him better than your child does. You know him better. Because you're talking to him more. You're talking to him in an adult conversation. Your child is not. So then let's just say, I've even heard women say, oh, but she loves him or he loved him when we were dating. But now that we got married, he's acting funny. Well, yeah, because he used to go home, right? Like he went back home, he came back. Now it's permanent. And so the child goes through all of these questions. Am I going to be replaced? Is my mom going to just be there for me? And so, George, I'm sure you can back me up on this. When you get ready to talk through discipline, right? If your significant other has an issue with your child, that your significant other, we always tell them, bring it to the parent first. The two of you work together behind closed doors on what you think the best strategy is. And the parent needs to come out and say, all right, here's what's getting ready to happen. Why? Because as Harold said, my mother's voice and authority, I know. I don't know his authority, right? And so it's very similar if you're dating a man and he has children and you're not crazy about how the children are talking to you or acting, or they don't like to clean their room. You got to go behind closed doors, and the two of you have to talk about what you want to see happen. And again, if the two of you can't get on one accord, you guys need to go to counseling and really begin to back up and start talking through, how do we begin to get on one accord in parenting? I've got a parenting style. He has a parenting style. And let's not even begin to talk about it. I'm bringing children, you bringing children, and we got two different, right? So, yeah, I don't know if anybody else.
I'll like this. Like I have a client I'm working with right now, and I want to fast forward this to older children to adult children.
Yeah.
He's also paying attention to, like, are you still treating them like little kids? Are you still kind of wrapped around them all the way? And because it starts to make, for at least, this client and for a lot of other men, the thought of like, so where do I fit in? You're still jumping all the time when the 20-something-year-old calls. That 20-something-year-old or 20, however many kids, have you manipulated in some way and feels like there's no space or room? So like there's also this part of how do you allow your kids to grow and to evolve and be their own so that you can actually have your own life and own relationship.
That's good.
And without talking about that, without working through that, you could end up losing a relationship where the person feels like they don't have a space in your life because you and your kids, adult kids or however old, you haven't made enough room for this other person.
Yes. Let me also say that one of the things that children can't see is they need some consistency. What they can't see is that you're with Johnny today. Next month, you're with Sam.
Uncle Sam.
6 weeks later, you're with Jed. And then Jerome, next week.
Listen,
because I mean, what does that do? From the standpoint of a child. So looking from a child's eyes, what they're seeing is that yes, mom has some relationships, mom is dating, but that's the boyfriend. So I can't really respect him as a father figure. Now I shouldn't, but I can't really respect him as a father figure because you know what? The moment, and this probably has happened, in those situations, there's got to be an opportunity when the kids lowered their guard down, embraced one of the men in male figures, latched onto them, only not to see them, 8 weeks later. And so, in those situations, what happens in the child of a mind? Well, I'm going to, throw up, a guard and, just keep these men at arm's length because I don't know when, mom's going to, change up and make a different decision. That's and so now what happens though, after all of that, when the woman becomes, when she embraces, the one, then there's a struggle with bringing the kids up to speed and with letting them know and letting them see that this one is different. Well, it's hard for kids to make that, jump from one side of the tracks to the other. So that is, one of the dangers too. And I think that's one of the, you started out, Nikki, by asking a question, when should I, share my relationship with my kids? And I think it goes back to that question.
Yeah, that's great. And something else I want to add. I don't think we recognize the mourning period that children go through when you get remarried, because you've moved on from the ex, whoever the ex is. And even if that child has never met the ex, in their mind, they have a fantasy of their real dad or their real mom. And you getting married, although is a great thing for you, it is a closing of the door for that child, that my dad or my mom is never going to be in this family again. And I'm telling you, it is so real. And that child has no way of articulating that. You want to know why? Because we can't articulate it half the time. So you have to be aware. And I think it's important that when we do premarital counseling, that you bring your children to premarital counseling so that they have a safe place to say, I don't like Mr. Billy. I don't like Miss Tina, and here's why. And they have an opportunity to work through. I have never seen parents bring their children to premarital counseling, but we always leave them out because we think it's just about us, but it is not. The entire family is shifting on this ship and this train. And so that is my advice. Bring your children to premarital counseling, not 5 weeks before you get married. It's too late. I'm talking premarital counseling needs to be a minimum of 6 months, a minimum. If you can do it a year in advance, this person is the one for you. You don't have to have a ring. Go to relationship counseling. Bring your children. Work. You got time a year in advance to just start working through communication and working through parenting. Let somebody else get involved in the process. Please, please, please. Okay, we're going to jump into one more thing because I want to jump right to questions. Dr. George has to go. But this one thing I want to say, help, he's a mama's boy. Lord Jesus, quickly, because at 8:15, I want us to ask some questions. He is a mama's boy. What does that mean for him? And what does that mean for us?
That sounds like a Harold question.
He's a mama's boy. So I guess, so well, tell me what is a mama's boy? And because we can go a few different ways.
From a woman's perspective, right? And girls, I need you to help me out so y'all can type in the chat. Lord, he cannot cut the apron strings with his mama. Everything he's always, now mind you, his mama may not like me or like her. And he's just always mama, whatever mama says, whatever mama wants. He's just he's a mama's boy. And I think another kind of in the back of our mind, he's a little soft. Like he's, he struggles to take initiative and to really own, his space and to, know his path. He's always looking for somebody to affirm, and there's nothing wrong with affirmation, right? Because that could be your love language, but he can't do anything, almost anything. The woman has to do everything. He just really struggles to really get his foot out there. So she's helping him find a job, or she's helping him to, figure out what his next steps in life is. She's kind of everything because his mama did everything for him. She made his bed. She cleaned, she cooked every single day. She drove him everywhere. She just dotted on him. She was the helicopter mom. And so here he is. And we married and he can't do nothing. He can't do nothing. He can't do nothing. Help us.
Well, I guess one of the things I'll say is, so if you've married somebody like that, then what did he show you during the dating process?
That's it.
Because I think, so if we back up before marriage, again, this whole concept about dating, which is, me filling you out, you filling me out, us understanding, of course, we don't know what the future holds, but I'm getting a good sense of, where you're struggling and what you're bringing to the table. If that didn't come out during the dating period, then he was doing a good job with putting that on the covers. And something like that, you can't hide.
That's true.
Something like you can't hide, because every time mama, calls and, he's running. And so I will say that this is not someone that I would want my daughter, to date and to eventually marry. So I think that, again, taking it slow and not rushing and not jumping in and really looking and trying to understand some of these things, so, I mean, it sounds like to me that, there are some areas of maturity that needs to happen. There are some insecurities, that need to happen, because what happens when, he's relying on mom to make decisions before you get married, he's either going to be still relying on mom in the marriage, or he's going to shift and start relying on you.
Exactly.
I think one of the things we have to realize is that, we don't date, to change people. And we don't enter a marriage with the hopes that someone will change. I think change is an inevitable process. And, part of me marrying you on some level is me saying, I'm no longer focused on me, myself, and I, but now this is me growing with you. And some of that means that there are some things that I'm going to give up and give into and change as we grow. But I don't know. I think that there are some insecurities, and I think I would hope, that a lot of that would have been borne out, in the dating process.
Well, I think the comment that this Facebook user says, he looked like, because this is every woman's, this is how we get tripped up.
Oh, gotcha. I see.
How he treats his mother. We love it. And it's like, oh, he treats his mom so well. And then we get married and we're like, oh, it's always.
I think that's the problem too, is like, that's the mixed message, right? Like, I think that there's a lot of women who say like, all right, let me see how he treats his mom, right? And you look into that and you put that at a high level, right? But it's almost hidden in that is the assumption that he's going to stop treating his mom that way, right? Like, he's just going to automatically then stop treating his mom in this way and shift it all to you. That's a fantasy. I mean, that is just not reality. The thought that, like, if you're treating anybody like, oh, he's treating his kid this way, and all of a sudden he's going to stop. Like, so on one level, it's like we can't put one thing out on a pedestal and then put the other one down. Like, I think some of it is look at the truth. What is it that you're really saying? I think part of this is you don't want a man to be, and this is one of the words we use, enmeshed with his mom. Right, that they're so like.
So break that down. Explain what enmeshed means.
Right. They're so tight that there is no like space. Right, they're so like as someone said, like has to run every decision by them. Right, like no one really wants that with any parent. Right, you wouldn't want where there's no space for anybody else. That they're so connected, they're so intertwined. Right, that that he is the husband to the mom and the mom is the partner to him, right? Like, right. And they might have had to function that way from maybe very young, right? Or whatever the case may be. But the other side of that, but we do want, I would say you do want a man that loves and cares for his family, that loves and cares for his mom, that has a way to balance responsibility with family and responsibility with you. That is the thing that you're really looking for. Is he so caught up that he can't do anything without his mom, or that he's playing a role for his mom and there's no way for him to step away from that? Or is he someone that can equally or have some balance with caring for family while also taking care of other responsibilities? And as Harold said, you see those differences. You see if he's able to put up a boundary with mom. You see if he's able, even in the dating or wedding process, does mom's way is the only way that happens? Right? Or is he able to say, no, mom, we're not going to do it that way? Is he able to say no and also show respect?
Yep. A lot of times, we saw these things when we're dating, but we chose to overlook them. because we wanted the relationship, more than we wanted to be honest.
That's right. That's good. So listen, well, let's jump right into questions. And while I'm waiting for the questions to come up, there's we can keep kind of talking about this. Ladies, if you have questions, now is the time. We are closing and ending this at 8:30, which is another 10 minutes or so. So if any of you have questions, please post them right now in the chat. I actually have one question that I think we want to answer, and we'll be waiting for other people to type some stuff. But here it is. My husband of 6 years doesn't talk much. Before we got married, we had a lot to say. When we're around friends, and this is actually a question that was posted to me a little while back. When we're around friends or company comes over, he is the life of the party, honey. He just opens up. It's like, ah. And so how do I help him open up when it's just us? And I've ordered conversation cards to spark conversations. I've sat with him to involve myself in sports. I desire more conversation and have shared that with him, but he's still very quiet. And at times he tries to spark conversation, and I'm very grateful. He says everything is fine and there's no issues he has with me or the marriage, but I still just wonder, is it me? Should I just let him be and relax in the fact that this is his personality? Knowing that I have a desire for more conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think this question is really great because I think I hear how this person has really tried and trying and doing different things. I always believe there's a responsibility on both, right? I think there's probably something going on for him. I think that maybe it is his personality. Maybe he's like, okay, when the lights are down, it's just okay. I can be chill. But when the lights are on, I'm a whole nother person, or being a host and all this other stuff. But most likely there is something that happened. There is some point where maybe he shared and he felt like you said this or said that or hurt his feelings, and he didn't say it, which is on him. And maybe you might need to continue to pay attention to what environment are you creating? What is the difference when it's just you versus with other people? What are the things that other people say and do versus when it's just with you? And I'm not saying that it's just your fault, because he is responsible for what he does and doesn't do, or what he says and doesn't say. And for whatever reason, he's choosing not to. And at the end of the day, there are some people who are just not talkers. And I don't think that's great, but I know that there's some people who are like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to, or it's impossible, to jump inside someone's mind, right? But I think to George's point, I think there's an obligation to challenge, to respectfully, pry and to ask, what is the difference? The question is, what is his real personality? I think George kind of started to touch on it. Does he feel like he needs to be the host when others are around? And, is that his, true nature and personality, or does he jump into that facade and role? And albeit he must be really good at it, because that's kind of how everyone sees him, and even how the spouse sees him. But, is he really comfortable in that role? Is that his primary, personality, or is he more introverted, quiet, and, closer to his true nature, when the glitz and glamour and the lights go off and the lights go down, his level of comfort. So I don't know. It's a hard question, but I think that there's an obligation on both parts to be transparent and honest. And I think one of the things that George said that I'll say is the spouse can ask do you recognize the difference? Because maybe he's not conscious and cognizant of it. So I think the first thing is to challenge him with embracing and seeing the difference. And then with that, then speaking to the difference, well, how do you feel, when others are around? How do you feel with me? And what's the difference? Because it seems like there's two different people, showing up, in our relationship.
And Harold, as you know, me sharing our story, which was actually the opposite. Well, actually, no, when me and you were dating, I would come up to Pitt. You went to University of Pittsburgh, and first of all, those that may not know us, me and Harold have known each other since I was like 11. We grew up in church together. We've always known each other. His mom was the church secretary. My mom was the minister of music. And he was always quiet. I mean, we just, we knew them, the whole family in my mind. Everybody in church, they were just a quiet family. And I remember him coming back home from college after he went away, and he was like this whole different person. It was very attractive. Many of the girls in the church was like, oh my God, Harold can talk. And so I would go up to University of Pittsburgh and visit him, and he was running his Christian organization, and people knew him. And it was just such a different Harold. And he was the life of the party, right? And when we got married and he moved back to New Jersey, and we started hanging out with friends. We would get in social situations, and anybody who knows me knows I love being around people. I love laughing. And I would look around. Harold would be over in the corner somewhere looking at his watch. Like, at what time is this going to be over? And I could not understand what is the why, and I remember we struggled, babe, we struggled and we talked through it. And for probably a couple of years, we just would fight about it all the time until I think he really showed me and started explaining, this is really my personality, and yes, I was comfortable with the people in University of Pitt, but these are your friends. I don't know these people, and etc. And over time, though, I think him understanding my passion and wanting him to be a part of our social scene and opening up when people come around, he also felt, and there were times I did that, I would make jokes at his expense in front of people. I'm like, yeah, Harold didn't clean the dishes yesterday. His clothes was dirty. And he was like, no, time out. You're not going to embarrass me here. And so I didn't know that was, he's like, I don't like you saying things in front of people, making me the butt of the joke. And so I'm not saying, for the person who actually posted this, I'm not saying that's what you do. But I did have to really say, it really bothers me that when we dated, you were this life of the party. That's really what got me for real. You would walk into a room and own it. And now that we're married, you sit in the back of the church. When church is over, you got the car started with the heat going mad because I'm talking to folks. And I only got 5 minutes to talk to people after church. And it went on for years. And I could not understand what the shift was. But I have to honor him because he really started. And at home, at home, he was not quiet at all. He's fun. And he was the guy I met at the University of Pittsburgh. And, we're fun and we're laughing. She's chasing me around the house. I'm like, stop it, Harold. I'm just having a blast. But in public, it was like, he just totally shut down. So those that gave this question, the woman who gave this question, I think having an honest conversation and sharing, what it does for you and what it means for you to have that person that you had. Because she did say before they got married, he spoke a lot. He talked a lot. And now he kind of doesn't. And so I think it's important that you really say, hey, here's what I'm noticing. And I really this is the person I fell in love with. And I don't mind you being quiet here or there, but it feels like it's deafening. So, okay.
Well, I can tell you that the only, in order to have a true conversation like that, you've got to create a safe space, of vulnerability, because that's what it's really all about. So my wife shared our story, and what it was for me was, in Pittsburgh, that was my scene. Mm-hmm. That was my scene. When we came back to Jersey, that was her scene. And guess what? I didn't want to play in her scene.
Right.
So I didn't want to be a character in her scene. So guess what? I supported her. So I drove her, sat in the back. When it was done, I ran her up out of there. So that was me and my story, but like she said, she had to, we had to have some honest conversation because it really started to bother her. It was okay with me because guess what? I was good. But I think that whoever asked that question, I think it's really all about vulnerability, safe space, because he's not going to share his heart. He's not going to share, you know, his fears, his challenges, his questions, you know, unless he feels that this isn't going to be something that's going to be turned around on him or, you know, not taken seriously. So I think creating a safe space for vulnerability.
Good.
I want to just add
We
one
answer this next question. I know, George, you have to run.
Yes.
I want to thank you so much, George. Everybody say thank you, Dr. George, for being a part. George has clients tonight, which is starting right now. George, he will be back if you come to Ignite. You know he's been at my Ignite conference several times. But thank you so much, Dr. George.
Thank you. I wanted to quickly just say to what Harold said, what I love about that and what you both shared is like the give and take of relationships. Or like when you said that, I'm like, that was Candace, like in terms of like she was out in the car, ready, warmed up, ready to go. I'm like, look, this is my time to catch up with people. But I remember growing up watching my mom, and she would talk forever in church, and I would be ready to go. And then here I am doing the same thing.
Yes.
But over years, I learned sometimes how to shut down the conversation and go. And I've seen my wife be able to turn up the conversation and engage people. And so we found that rhythm with each other, which can happen if there's give and take. And I think that's a lot of what we've talked about. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. I had a good time. And I'll see you.
All right, George.
Thank you. George. All right. So there's a question from Kimberly. What is a wife's responsibility to make her husband comfortable about her self-improvement and change? Now, I'm not certain I understand the question, but it sounds like Kimberly is asking, what steps should she take in notifying her husband that she's getting ready to take some new steps in her life, and whether it be with her image, physical image, or her spiritual image, or her business, or her purpose. And Kimberly, if that is what you're asking, please confirm that. What do you think? What do you think about that, babe, that she should really start to, what should the steps kind of be?
Wait, say it again so that I'm trying to understand exactly.
So I think
what she's trying to get at.
I think what happens is, and Kimberly, please confirm if I'm right. I think what happens is, and me and you, we've experienced this, where you know me for one dimension, right? Mm-hmm. And that's my hair, my clothes, who I am, but also, what I'm doing, whether it's work, whether it's, how I serve in church. And sometimes we don't always share, whether it's a husband or a wife, when God starts leading us in a different direction, and so let's just talk purpose wise. We have this passion or this desire to want to leave our job or start a business. We've just been toying with it for years, and maybe we haven't said a whole lot, or we kind of threw it out there. But now, maybe after 10 years of marriage or 6 years of marriage, now we're ready to kind of go from 0 to 100. How do we prepare our spouse for that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's, marriage and relationship is all about communication, and I think, that's where it starts. It starts with, being on one accord. We talk about, this is a, Christian marriage. And so I think it also starts with prayer. And so making sure that we both feel comfortable, that this is where God is leading us. If we're engaged and moving in the same line with that, then I think that, we understand our roles in this thing. And so if this is something that, my wife is pursuing, I think that part of this is, one, really hearing, so if this is you, Nikki, and you embracing something new and going in a different direction, one, I think there's an obligation on your part, to clearly communicate, what, why, and how, because sometimes it's hard to, jump on your bandwagon or your train if you say it's going one way, but I see it going another. Yes. So I think that one, understanding clearly, what you feel is your passion and your vision. And Two, just being able to, have a level of consistency with it. On my part, I think it's me taking a step back and being, humble enough and, open enough, to try to embrace and understand, this new change and what's going on. And then, me supporting.
Yeah. And she made a follow-up comment, which I think I understand now. Just like I said, the 20s, she said the 20s Kim is different than the 40s Kim.
Oh.
And in long relationships, you change. And so that's what, that's kind of what I said. I think she's saying,
gotcha.
And you answered that, does your spouse have the capacity for who you're going to become?
Mm.
And we never know that, right? Because most of the time we date for who that person is, not with the potential of who they could become in the future, right? And so we think that person's going to always be that same person. And in essence, they are, but we change, we grow. And baby, you know this because we got married in our early 20s. And the 20 Harold is not the 40s Harold and is not the 40s Nikki. I mean, at all. We have totally, there's so many different priorities that are different now and passions that are different now. And I think the thing that, Kim, that you have to do is trust that the spouse that you married has the capacity to handle your change and just share it. Be honest. Authenticity, being open and honest and saying, years ago, I was okay with, let me just say, doing the dishes every day. I don't want to do it like that anymore. Years ago, I was all right. This is something simple. I don't know that this is what you're struggling with, but years ago, I didn't mind, cooking every day. But you know what? For where I am and what's going on, I would like for you to jump in. Or this is who I used to be. And so, and some of the things that are a little more difficult are those changes that you can't always just say. Like, for instance, maybe you didn't argue back all the time, but now you're owning your voice. You're starting to own a different opinion. That's hard to kind of articulate, but I think it's important. And me and Harold went through this same thing. There were years we would argue. I would say my point. He would say, okay, and move on. Well, right around maybe, I don't know, Harold, you would say maybe 4 years ago, he was like, I never liked that, Harold. I always wanted to say more, but I just didn't know how to articulate it because I'm trying to figure out where is this man coming from that's arguing, doing a whole bunch of arguing back. I mean, we're just arguing back and forth all the time. This is about 3-4 years ago. And what I learned is that the 20s Harold and the 30s Harold, who just wanted to make peace and just wanted the house to feel good, was not the Harold in the 40s that's like, oh, sis, we about to get it on now. And so it's important. We had to sit down and have those authentic, honest conversations.
Yeah, it's about transparency, because what is the opposite of transparency? An opaque wall that you can't see through. And so if you're on opposite sides of the wall, growing, you're actually growing apart, and you're causing a crack. And we know what happens with cracks as things grow, that gulf gets bigger and bigger. And so, it's all about that honest talk, that real talk. I used to, 10 years ago, I used to like this, but guess what? My tastes have changed.
That's right.
And so let's kind of talk about that and talk that out.
Yep. Well, listen, everybody, I want to thank you all for this whole series. The Relationship Rehab Series has just been amazing. I really, really pray that you all got something out of it. It was only supposed to last through the month of March, but God just kept putting it on my heart that because relationships is such a big, huge part of who we are, that we couldn't just let it go. He kept giving me message after message. And I also saw the value in bringing people to the table to hear their perspective. And so I know it felt like, man, we're still talking about this. But from hearing the millennials talk to hearing the single women talk and the men both times and the married women, my prayer is that you would have relationship success. And so I want to, again, invite you all to my dating boot camp part 2. It is going to be on Thursday, May the 6th at 7:15. We had such an amazing time for our dating boot camp part 1. Those women showed up, they showed out. We talked about our brand, our image. We talked about, do I talk like a wife? Do I, how to overcome baggage, trust issues. And there's a couple of things that I want us to go back to and really begin to flesh out, like authentic conversations. It sounds so simple, but it is not. Understanding what your real communication style is. Are you passive? Are you aggressive? Do you take the initiative? It is important to know yourself, as well as what makes you irresistible. Honey, listen, if you're waiting for a man to tell you what's great about you, you're going to be in trouble. So positioning yourself to know what makes me irresistible, what makes me have a scent for a man to want to chase me. You have to know that, and baby, you need to ride that till the wheels fall off. So we're going to talk about what makes you irresistible. We're going to talk about when, if you're in a relationship, when is it time to just start walking away? You've already invested 8, 9, 10 years, 6, 7 years. Or when is it time to start creating boundaries, a different set of boundaries in relationship? We go through dating and we swear, oh, I'm never going to do this again. Some of those boundaries are great and some of those boundaries are not good. So how do we create healthy boundaries? And then how to have a conversation to shift your love life to the next level. And whether that's with this person or whether it's opening the door for the real blessing that God wants you to have, I want to talk with you about that. The space is very, very limited. Go to my website, www.ignitesummit.org. Irvina, if you can post that in there, go right to my website and register. Space is very limited. I only took a few women last time because I really wanted to pour into them, and it'll be very similar this time. Okay. And then I want to invite you to our next Bible study series. Woo, the winning season. Listen, y'all, I have a new hashtag. It is called #NoMoreLosses. I need everybody to type that in the chat. It is my winning season, #NoMoreLosses. We have had enough losses in our life. And I want you to know we're going to start our new virtual Bible study series on May the 10th, Monday, May the 10th at 7:15 p.m. I want you to invite your friends. I'm really excited. God has given me some amazing messages on how to get in the winner's position and what the winner's circle looks like. And women who win, what do women who win consistently do? So you want to join me May the 10th. Everybody type May the 10th. It's our winning season. It is time. And don't forget, there's other things that we have going on. Go to our website. But please, we're going to post this in the chat, this flyer. We're going to post this. Please forward it to your friends. Invite them to the page. I thank you so much for staying and sticking with us and with me and being a part of the gathering place. I want you to know that I could not do this series and this Bible study without your energy. There are days, keeping it real, when I'm like, oh, I don't know if anybody really cares about this Bible study. But every Monday that I get on and I see you and you're talking back and you're sharing and you're posting, some of you have literally sold money into my life and just said, I just want you to know that I'm thinking of you. Some of you gave me money when you didn't know that I literally needed that exact amount and was praying, because I don't like to ask for help and I don't like to ask for money. And I'm not asking for money now, but I just want you to know that you all have been a blessing to us. So get ready for the winning season. It is your time to win. #NoMoreLosses. No more losses. I thank you. I love you. God bless you. And I'll see you soon.